Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. Hope you've had a good week, as good as you can have. It's been a very, very heavy week, right? There's a lot going on in the world, man. As you see, I'm wearing glasses. Yes, my eyes are very tired. Okay, so you guys can make fun of me and call me a nerd or four eyes or whatever, but my face has been buried in the computer all day. My eyes are tired, so I'm wearing my computer glasses. I don't care. Go ahead and make fun of me. um, Make sure that you hit that thumbs up button. All right, go ahead and hit the like, and we got the phones open. We can talk about a lot of things, but before we get into the fight tomorrow over in Scotland, obviously I wanted to just talk real briefly about what's going on in Ukraine, and I'm sure you guys might want to talk about this too. But that's why I mean it's a heavy week, man. There's some heavy stuff going on in the world, and as it relates to Ukraine, I think look, I'm known as an Italian. I am Italian, but I'm also Eastern European, and I have relations to Ukraine on my mother's side. So what's going on right now over there, kind of hits home and is something that we're talking about. So I think for everyone in the boxing community, this is something that's kind of hitting home because there's a lot of influence in the boxing community right now from the Ukraine. If you look at the past 10, 20 years, some of the best fighters, and not just at heavyweight, but all the way down to like featherweight. Some of the best fighters been from that part of the world. So, and of course, this involves Russia too. There's a lot of Russian citizens that are not happy with what's going on and want really no part of it. This is something that their leadership is doing, but the people aren't necessarily for it. And then, of course, there are neighboring countries around there that are going to be affected by this. I mean, Poland is right there, Belarus is right there. So I think a lot of Eastern European people right now are caught up in this. And of course, that hits the boxing community heavily because, again, there's a lot of fighters from that part of the world that you and I watch. And, for me, I speak with a lot of these guys. There's some of them that I've gotten to know pretty well, some of these guys. So, yeah, it's a pretty big deal, man. I don't know what to say other than I hope that uh, hopefully it's over quickly and there could be a peaceful solution found. And we're not talking about this 6 months from now, that's really my hope, more than anything else. I don't want to get political and talk about how we got here and everything. I do think that unfortunately our leadership here in the United States is involved in different ways and helped bring us here. But I don't even really want to talk about that. I just I know that people have died, and I know a lot of people personally that I know, their family members are affected by this, and friends and family, neighbors, that sort of thing. So it sucks. It really sucks, man. Super chat pledge from Aaron. Thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate that. He says, "Yo, Mike, hope you're well. Vasily intends to live here indefinitely. Great timing. Humidity and intensity of the sun here is like anywhere else. Just ask Manny, especially if the fight is outdoors. He may melt." Well, Aaron, tell everybody where you're talking about specifically, man, in the chat so the guys know. But well, I'm sure, speaking of Vasily, I'm sure you guys saw that Alexander Usyk, I think, was in the UK, I think, doing some initial preparations for his rematch with Anthony Joshua that should take place, was set to take place in the first half of this year. He's over there now in the Ukraine. You guys know about Vladimir Klitschko, and now you know about Vitaly Klitschko. I tweeted out some stuff a few minutes ago, and these guys, look, man, these guys are multimillionaires, especially the Klitschko brothers, especially Vladimir. These guys are worth tens of millions of dollars, and superstars, not just in Ukraine, but in many different countries, many different parts of Europe, and could be kind of sitting on their ass in a hot tub or something, tweeting about what's going on and trying to do what I call, hashtag activism and making it about them and putting up these empty gestures, and just the stuff that a lot of celebrities do. They're not doing that. They are over there They're over there putting themselves on the front lines in harm's way to help their fellow citizens. I think that's pretty admirable, and it's something that I don't think we see from a lot of superstar celebrity athletes, especially. But I was going to say, actors and even politicians, man, because I saw several Ukrainian politicians are putting themselves right there in the front lines, and I know for sure that wouldn't be happening here in America. We had politicians here telling people that they couldn't leave their house, yet we saw them partying it up at insanely expensive restaurants like French Laundry and stuff. Just Google it, guys. French Laundry and the governor of California. I mean, it's crazy. So to see some old-fashioned actual leadership has been pretty cool, and to see that tied to the boxing world, that's been really cool too. That hits home for all of us because we're boxing nuts. Man. Oh, so Aaron's in Queensland. All right, but yeah, he says even in Melbourne it'll be hot in the summer. Yeah, I've never been to that part of the world. I'd love to, but it's a little crazy over there right now. But once it's a little less crazy over there, I'd like to go visit. Aaron says it was 32 Celsius when Manny fought Jeff Horn in Brisbane. Yeah, I remember that. Crazy humid. But you know what? In terms of proximity, I get why Vasily would go down there. I get it to train. I think there's going to be more too. I actually think the Australian boxing scene is growing. There's been some good fighters in recent years from that part of the world, and there's a market building. So if Kambosos puts on this big fight, which, again, I'm not going to disclose too much, but he should fight over there in June as long as things hold up. But guys, the government's involved in his next fight. It's big, and the big football league over there is involved. So there's a big international involvement. That's going to be huge, and that's going to help further build the Australian boxing community. All right, let's get to some news here. Steve Teitelbaum with the super chat. Thank you very much, Steve. He says, "Can Bivol beat Canelo?" Oh, well, that brings us to the news of the hour. As it relates specifically to boxing news. Actually, I don't even think it's been officially made official yet, but apparently a deal is right there. And as I've been telling you guys, Canelo is going to fight Bivol and Golovkin. I think it's Bivol for May 7th, and I want to say Golovkin is September 17th. I think those are the two dates. I'm just going off the top of my head. I could be wrong, but right around there. Can Bivol beat? I mean, yeah, of course he can, but would I favor him to at this point? No, I think Bivol has plateaued in recent years. Now, again, maybe he's just playing possum and fighting down to the level of his opposition. We've seen Bivol fight very, very well, but he has somewhat plateaued, and I think that Canelo has found a way. He's really found his groove anyway, fighting taller fighters. And for Bivol, who moves straight in and straight out, I just think that could be timed. He doesn't move laterally very well unless he can really stay behind that jab and throw 50 jabs around or something to keep Canelo from countering as he pulls that straight out. And then if he pulls straight out behind a jab, hands up, and then he can move away to the side, Bivol's got a shot, of course, but he's going to be fighting the system. That fight's likely going the distance. He's going to be fighting the system. Can he get a decision? I don't know. But look, so I have to. We'll talk about the fight with Bivol, Canelo and Bivol, as we get closer, of course. And there's going to be plenty of time for us to break it down and dissect it. But as long as there's no rematch clause or any of that stuff, man, I love that Canelo's really fighting him at 175. That's a legit fight. This is not when Canelo fought Sergey Kovalev. Kovalev was very compromised going into that fight. I don't even rate that as one of Canelo's top 10 wins. I know a lot of people, it was marketed as this big thing. He got a title at 175. I could give a flying, you know what. But against Bivol, that's a real deal. If Canelo beats Bivol and there's no shenanigans, there's no nonsense, he actually beats him fair and square, then man, that's significant. That's a really, really good win for Canelo. That would be one of his top wins. I really, really mean that. And then, okay, so some of you guys may not love the Canelo Triple G3 fight we're gonna get in September, but you have to remember several things. And let's talk about this for a second, because of course now there's people that are pissed off that Canelo isn't going to take the PBC deal, but there's multiple reasons for this. Okay, the big prize for Canelo and for DAZN, if we're being honest, in Matchroom, okay, is the third fight between Canelo and Golovkin. And a lot of you guys out there saying, I don't care. I'm so burnt out on that matchup. You know, oh my God, all the drama between the two of them. I don't want to see it. Golovkin's past his best years. Canelo's going to mop the floor with him now, right? It's all the same things I'm hearing. I understand all that. Trust me, I get it. But guys, between 154 pounds and 175 pounds, that's 4 divisions, right? 54, 60, 68, 75. That's 4 divisions. Who are the 2 biggest names in those 4 divisions? Hell, we could expand it. Okay, we could go, it's beyond those 4 divisions, actually, because I'm just thinking to myself, these guys are bigger names than anybody at welterweight, junior welterweight, lightweight. I mean, we can keep going. Canelo and Golovkin are 2 of the biggest names in the sport, especially Canelo, obviously, but Golovkin is still, globally, he's probably still a top 5 brand. If you're talking about active fighters, I'm not including Floyd and Manny in that, okay? I don't consider them active fighters. I know Floyd was probably going to come back and do another exhibition. Forget them. I'm talking about actual active fighters from this generation. Golovkin's probably still a top 5 brand globally. He's about to fight Ryota Murata in Japan. That fight will do massive numbers. It will do tens of millions of viewers in that country alone. Okay, just in one country. Globally, it could be 100 million. That sounds nuts. I get it. It sounds nuts. But if you start thinking about it, if you're getting tens of millions in Japan alone, and you start whacking up the international numbers, the money, all of that, guys, that's huge. And if Golovkin looks good, and that's a good fight, and he technically unifies middleweight belts, he knocks off some rust, et cetera, and then you have Canelo moving up to 75, fighting a legit 75 title holder. Again, this isn't a compromised, shot the shit Sergey Kovalev. This isn't anything like that. This is probably the 2nd best light heavyweight in the world. If Canelo beats him, guys, the demand for these 2 to fight each other again, Canelo and Golovkin, it will be there. Further, when you look at this deal with Canelo, Bivol, Golovkin, Matchroom, DAZN, okay, let's compare that to the Canelo, Charlo, Benavidez PBC deal, right? Which of the 2 has more infrastructure and visibility domestically in the United States? DAZN pay-per-view or PBC pay-per-view, which would be Fox pay-per-view? Well, obviously it's PBC. Globally or domestically in the United States, it's PBC, right? We know this. I don't think anyone would debate that. But globally, which of those 2 platforms, those 2 conglomerates, if you will, has a bigger platform globally, better infrastructure for the global marketplace? Well, that's obviously DAZN. It's in over 100+ countries, right? And Bivol is from Russia. And Golovkin, of course, we know all about him and where he's from, and like the international audience, the global audience he brings. Obviously, Canelo's from Mexico. So you start doing the math here, you start adding up all of that. I think there's way more upside financially, guaranteed money, as well as back-end upside for the DAZN deal, because it includes that 3rd fight with Golovkin. Again, it's not just Bivol. Bivol's kind of the means to the end to get to that 3rd Golovkin fight. Not that Canelo needs it. He doesn't. But you know who needs it really, really, really bad? DAZN. They have lost billions of dollars globally in the last few years because all they've been doing is buying, just gobbling shit up, right? Without even thinking about getting money back. You know, I guess it will come, but they have lost tons of money. And DAZN Boxing, in terms of their spending and their finances, their financial responsibility, it's been an unmitigated disaster recently. COVID didn't help. They were actually doing okay. They were really, really gaining momentum in they had a really good 2019. And then COVID just poof, right? And their guarantees with Canelo, Golovkin, all that stuff had to be restructured. But this fight is going to get those subscribers, and it's going to get them a pay-per-view sale. Now, let's talk about that real quick. Pay-per-view, DAZN pay-per-view. That sucks. It sucks. And I'm not happy about it, okay? But what we don't know is what they're going to charge. What I would like to see DAZN do, and look, if they're throwing out the amount of money that they're throwing out, if it's going to cost them over $100 million to do these two fights, most of it is the Canelo Golovkin fight, right? They're going to have to go pay-per-view. If you just look at the finances, guys, this isn't Gervonta Davis fighting Isaac Cruz, and they're charging $80 for that. That fight should never have been on pay-per-view. There's zero justification. And there's plenty more that I could talk about, right? That should have never been on pay-per-view. But Canelo Golovkin, the casual audience will be involved. The mainstream sports media will be involved in that fight. And the global audience for that is going to be massive. So I understand why that's pay-per-view. Now, if Golovkin Murata was pay-per-view here in America, I'd be shitting down DAZN's throat right now. But it's not. Anyway, here's what I want to see DAZN do. For annual subscribers that pay the $100, that have been loyal to DAZN, that have paid $100 in 2020 when they didn't get shit for that $100, right? The people that have remained annual subscribers to DAZN, you should get a break on the pay-per-view. If the pay-per-view is $60 and you're a subscriber, you should get it for $30 or $40. You should get a break. If subscribers have to pay the same amount that non-subscribers have to pay, well, what's the point of being a subscriber? And I'm putting it on the record right now. I will cancel my subscription instantly if they do that. And I'll put it on the record. I will screenshot it and I will tweet it out. If DAZN charges me, a guy who has been a subscriber, an annual subscriber since they launched, if they charge me the same amount of money they're charging non-subscribers, I will cancel my account, I will screenshot it out, and I will tag the entire DAZN staff on those tweets. I'm putting it on record right here. You guys can hold me to it. I'm hoping DAZN is smarter than that, and they provide an incentive for people to subscribe to their platform, because paying $100 a year compared to the almost $1,000 a year you have to pay to be a fan of other platforms, it's still a great deal. It's a great deal. But if this pay-per-view is $80, if I got to pay $100 and then I got to pay $80 for Canelo Bivol and $80 for Canelo Golovkin 3, that's insane, man. That's crazy. Now, if you're a non-subscriber, hey, I can't hate on that price. You guys are out there paying for, you're paying $80 again for Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz. So you're going to get Canelo Alvarez, the undisputed super middleweight champion, fighting the #2 light heavyweight in the world, Dimitri Bivol. You're going to have to pay the same amount you paid for Tank Davis, Isaac Cruz. I think that's not a bad deal for you. But if you're a subscriber to DAZN, you shouldn't have to pay that. And by the way, even for non-subscribers, if I'm DAZN, I'm not charging $80. I'm charging maybe $60. I'm somehow finding a way to keep an edge against ESPN's pay-per-views, Fox's and Showtime's pay-per-views, because they want to charge $75, $80. Okay, we're going to charge $60. If you're a subscriber, $40. That is how DAZN could keep an edge. And, yeah, you went back on your promise that pay-per-view is done, because that was a stupid thing to say, especially at that time when your books weren't quite matching up. So that was bad marketing on their part. But if you still got the fights, people will show up if you price things accordingly. Boxing fans support boxing when it's a value for them. So I'm hoping DAZN listens to guys like me, and guys like you all watching this, because if they do, then I think they'll have a successful run with these fights. And they need it. They had a really, really rough 2020 and 2021. They could use this one. They really, really could. Super chat pledge from Sam. Thank you so much, Sam. He says ESPN Plus charges full pay-per-view to members. I don't know about that. I want to say they've done UFC pay-per-views that were a discount and boxing pay-per-views that were a discount, right? Or I know that they had a deal where like you had to pay the full price, but you got an annual subscription to ESPN Plus or something that went along with your pay-per-view purchase. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I thought ESPN did something like that at least once. Maybe I'm forgetting. But I swear they had some kind of deal where if you buy this pay-per-view, you get an annual subscription to ESPN Plus along with it. So it kind of paid for itself. Things like that are smart. And as we move off of TV, off of cable and network TV, and media is, the people that are saying, oh man, I don't want to fight on an app, or I don't want my show or my movie on an app. Well, you're dumb, because that's where the media is going. It's going to streaming. If you, Fox and ESPN and even like Showtime, HBO, they're a freaking dinosaur, man. 20, 30 years from now, they'll feel like the way AM radio feels to us, our generation, right? Our parents and grandparents still watch the nightly news in their local community, right? What do? We pick up our phone. Oh, I got the weather right here. You know, my mom watches the news at night. I'm like, Ma, what the fuck? I want to know, is it going to rain tomorrow? I'm like, Ma, just pick up your phone. There's an app. It'll tell you right now, by the hour, by the minute, how much precipitation you're going to get. Who cares about the local news, right? So it's a generational thing. As media gets off of TV and goes on to streaming and goes on to applications, the people who have built in that infrastructure and they've built in a customer base, and a way to market to them, you know, to get them to be loyal and subscribe, that's where it's going to be at. All right. You know what? I wanted to share a poll with you guys. I'm kind of going to be random and skip around today, but because I find this to be interesting. So April is going to be stacked, particularly mid to late April is going to be pretty stacked, the schedule. And I tweeted about that. One of my world famous polls. I said, which fight are you looking forward to the most? And I got Spence Ugas, which is April 16, Fury versus White, which is 4/23. And then Taylor, Serrano, Stevenson, Valdez, that are both April 30th. And it's actually closer than I thought. I thought maybe one of these would like run away with it. But Fury White and Stevenson Valdez are tied like neck and neck, 33% each. And then, so 1/3 for Fury White, 1/3 for Stevenson Valdez. And then the other third is split between Spence Ugas and Taylor Serrano. What's interesting to me about this is two of these fights are pay-per-view, and they're still holding up pretty well. The other two are regular TV, right? Or regular, well, I think Taylor Serrano is DAZN, regular DAZN, and then Stevenson Valdez is regular ESPN, which is cable, but not premium cable. So the other two are pay-per-view. And Fury versus White being pay-per-view in the United States, yeah, I don't agree with that. I think that's bad news. I think, and then Spence Ugas to me is not a pay-per-view worthy fight either. It's two top 5 welterweights, but Spence is coming off a long ass layoff. I just think it'd be better served on Fox. I think it'd do a big rating on Fox, but I get why that one's pay-per-view. I do. Fury versus White though, man, that should not be a pay-per-view in the United States. Does that get 100,000 buys? Maybe in the United States. And I guess they're looking at it like, shit, that's what, $8 million of extra revenue. So maybe that's just the way they're looking at it. But of course, that's going to do massive numbers over in the UK. But I thought this is interesting, man. So if you guys have not voted in this poll yet, it's up till tomorrow. So get in there and vote. Let me know what you think. But also wanted to show you guys this. Well, I'm sharing my screen here, as I love to do now. Let's look up Taylor Catterall hashtag, because check out this. Now, hopefully, my show doesn't get banned again like it did last week, because some dickhead at DAZN reported me for showing clips promoting their fight. But here's the weigh-in. Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall getting in each other's face, and Catterall grabs Taylor's neck And then Taylor grabbed him back. So I got to say, a lot of people are saying, man, Taylor is so fiery and such a dick. And man, it was Catterall who put his hands on him first. So, but he tried to choke him, and Taylor's choke was way better. It was brief. I'm going to see if I could find a picture of it, because I tweeted it out. I just got to find it. But, oh man. Oh, here we go. I found it. Check this out, yo. This is a great photo. Look at this, man. I wonder if Mikey caught this. My boy Mikey, he's a photography for Top Rank. He's a photographer for them. Travels all over and takes pictures. But I don't know if he's there for this one. Maybe not. But he gets great shots. Either way, this was awesome. Right in the moment where Taylor grabbed him back, and that's a way better choke than Catterall's choke. Catterall it was kind of a slap choke, but as you can see, Taylor's getting right up in there, and I'm looking at the picture, right, and he like is pushing skin back and getting right to that jugular vein. So that was a good choke. So this is a great picture here. This is gonna be heated. It's gonna be fun. A lot of people saying that Taylor just mops the floor and dominates. I actually think this is going to be competitive for a little while, because Catterall's got some craft to him, and he hasn't lost. So I just think those kinds of things matter. But I do expect also Taylor hasn't been active. All those things matter. It is tough for him to make 140. It's getting harder and harder for him to make 140. But I still think in the second half of the fight, mid rounds to late rounds, Taylor takes over, and we could see a late stoppage in this fight, or wide decision. But I had to show you guys that, because holy shit, that's just hilarious, man. All right, let me stop sharing my screen there. I want to get on another topic real quick. So this week, man, boxing Twitter. Oh, let me fix my chain here, man. That's not right. There we go. Boxing Twitter this week was just bad. And it wasn't just the typical idiots, but it was actually some fighters getting involved. And Andre Ward was asked, and I'm not even going to pull up his tweet and show all that, but he was asked, which fights did you not get to do that you regret? Is there any fights that fell through that again, I'm paraphrasing here, and he brought up several fights. He brought up Anthony Joshua, which is hilarious, because he said he wanted to do one heavyweight fight. Yeah, Andre Ward isn't going to fight Anthony Joshua. That's insane. But he brought up Gennady Golovkin, and he said that that we made that offer and Golovkin rejected it in 5 minutes. Guys, that is absolutely false. Okay, there's some things I could say on the record. There's some things I can't say on the record, but just trust me. That is an absolute lie from Andre Ward. And I don't know why he had to do that. He could have just said, yeah, it would have been cool to fight Golovkin, but the timing and everything, it just didn't work out. That's all you got to say. But to act like you made an offer and your side put an offer out there and Golovkin's side rejected it. And this is a narrative that has been spit out for years now. That is just unequivocally false. Never happened. Okay. And I invite you guys to, you guys that remember me back from the Undisputed Champion Network. Don't take my word for it. Just go to that channel. We did an episode of 10 Count with Tom Loeffler. During that time, I want to say this was 2015. It might have been early 2016. Don't quote me. I can't remember if it was 15 or 16, but it was right around that time. And I asked Loeffler. I think I hosted that episode. I may not have. I can't remember. I just know I think it was me, Tom, and maybe Doug Fisher on that episode. But just search for it. You'll find it. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if I don't remember exact details here. But I asked Tom Loeffler point blank, what's up with Andre Ward? What happened there? And he explained that basically what happened is, again, I'm paraphrasing here loosely, but Dan Raphael, back when he was on the beat with ESPN still, was talking to Tom Loeffler, and they were going back over email or text or whatever it was. They weren't even on the phone or anything. They were typing, so it was either email or text. And they were just Rafael was just asking questions, just doing what media guys do, just spitballing stuff and asking questions. Andre Ward's name came up, and Loeffler said, again, I don't want to state this incorrectly, but basically, we would fight him at this weight or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But it'd have to be under these conditions. This is how we'd want to do it, blah, blah, blah. But sure, we'd be willing to fight him, but it'd have to be boom, boom, boom. These are our conditions, is basically what Loeffler said. And it wasn't negotiations. It was a back and forth. I texted Tom Loeffler yesterday. We were texting back and forth. So, that's what we do. We guys in the media, if you have sources, you text with them, you chat with them, you might Twitter DM them. There's several promoters and fighters and stuff that I talk to all week long, guys. Okay. Different days or different guys, different days, different weeks. It's not the same guy every time, but we talk to each other, right? It's a small world. So when there's news to talk about and stuff, it's like, hey man, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? And you try to get some answers. You try to just sniff around for some info. And that's all Rafael was doing. And Loeffler, again, basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not a quote, but we'll absolutely fight Ward, but here's the conditions, boom, boom, boom. And Rafael kind of reported that out in the media, almost like as a story, which I've talked to you guys about this before. Certain writers and stuff do that, and I think that, and Rafael's got a lot better about that, but there's certain other ones now that are kind of infamous for doing this, right? Sources and so, and there's several guys that do this, but I always keep that stuff completely off the record. I just don't put it out there. I keep that between me and the individual, and that's that. I'm a steel trap with that stuff. But anyway, that kind of got reported as news, and there are still people out there that take that as like fight negotiations taking place and an offer being presented, and numbers were being talked about, and HBO got involved. None of that ever happened. None of it ever happened. Never. And by the time anybody from Ward's camp actually reached out to Golovkin's camp, because I do think there was an eventual reach out. I'm not talking about an offer like, hey, here's a contract, here's a 18-page deal. You sign this, look this over, have your lawyers look at it, sign it, we're good. No, I'm just talking about, hey, man, type on my cell. Let me text you. What do you think about this? I'm talking about that level, okay? This is like just scratching the surface. By the time that even took place, it was late 2015, and Golovkin had signed and announced that he was going to fight David Lemieux, okay? That was already a done deal. So this whole, we made an offer, it never happened. And by the way, but before there was any contact between camps, it was already known that Golovkin had a fight. So I just want to make sure I get the date right. Let me look this up real quick. It was October 17, 2015. That's when Golovkin fought David Lemieux, right? So Andre Ward didn't fight until the next year, until March of 2016 when he fought Sullivan Barrera. I want to back up, though, just a couple years here to give you guys a little further perspective on this, because this narrative continues to get pushed from certain segments of the boxing community. And I tweeted that yesterday. And of course, people took the word certain segments and they made that some kind of dog whistle or hidden meaning. I wasn't talking about any particular ethnic group or social group of people or nationality or anything else. I just meant certain segments of the boxing community. Certain YouTube channels, certain Twitter accounts continue to push this narrative. It's not a specific group of people. It's just certain guys that push this narrative. And I went back and forth on Twitter with several of these guys yesterday, and they're so ignorant. They just do not know what they're talking about. They do not have the information, but they think they do because they've been told by people that they trust, and they think, this is legit. They have no idea what the hell they're talking about. So just to back this up and just add a little more perspective to this, okay? And then I'll get a couple calls. But Gennady Golovkin first came to the United States, and I can't believe I'm having to repeat this, but he came to the United States. First fight here was in 2012. That was against Grzegorz Proksa. He was supposed to fight Dmitry Pirog. Nobody wanted to fight Pirog. Golovkin said, yeah, I'll do it, short money. And remember, Golovkin had a belt. And he said, I'll do it. I'll take short money. I'll fight this guy that nobody else wants to fight. Just get me on American TV. Okay. a couple $100,000. Cool, we're in, right? He would have did it. But Pirog got injured. Golovkin ends up fighting Proxa. A couple years before that, if you look at Golovkin's resume, he had fought in Ukraine, Germany, Panama, Kazakhstan. He kind of was fighting all over the place. That's because he was going through litigation with the German promoters that were boxing him out. He was supposed to fight Felix Sturm, who had the super belt, the WBA super. Golovkin had the WBA regular. The WBA and the German promoters colluded. They were corrupt, and they did not give Golovkin that fight. And he got sick of waiting and said, screw this. He sued the promotion and ended up relocating to America. You guys know the whole story there. For his first, now while he was going through that litigation, he was making just enough money to pay his people. Basically, Golovkin was fighting for free. This guy had a world title belt, and for a couple of years was making just enough money because of where he had to fight. He couldn't fight in Germany, and he couldn't fight in America. I think that was part of the litigation, those two countries specifically. But he made just enough money to pay his team for camp and all that stuff. He's basically fighting for free. Then he gets to America, and he's making nowhere near $500,000. Okay, he's in the six figures, but it's not even $500,000. He didn't make anywhere near $1 million until late 2014 when he fought Marco Antonio Rubio. I want to say Golovkin made $900,000. I think it was his next fight in 2015 against Martin Murray where he made $1 million for the first time. I bring all this up because I want you guys to understand this is when Golovkin was fighting 3-4 times a year, building up his brand, okay, and becoming a name. It really wasn't until 2015 where Golovkin was really starting to be seen as a top guy, and he ended up unifying belts, right? He got a mandatory position with the Rubio fight, late 2014, with the WBC. And Canelo ended up winning that belt off of Cotto. Canelo won no part of a prime Golovkin. This is when Canelo was still with Golden Boy. They wanted none of that. Oscar and the whole crew, Eric Gomez, were like, he's all wrong for us, baby. No, we're staying away. They dumped that BC belt. Remember all that? And then so Golovkin ends up unifying belts in 2015, really becomes a name and becomes a guy seen as the top middleweight in the sport. And at that time, by 2015, when Canelo had beat Cotto, because Cotto had gotten the lineal middleweight belt, right? When he beat Sergio Martinez, even though it was at this weird catch weight, and Canelo stayed at this weird catch weight, they started calling it Canelo weight on Twitter. Everyone looked at it and said, dude, I want Golovkin, I want Canelo in the ring. That's the fight. And the fans started really, really buzzing for that fight. It took 2 years to get it to finally happen, but it started in 2015, okay? When apparently these talks between Andre Ward and Gennady Golovkin were supposed to happen. They never happened. But just to put things in perspective, okay? Andre Ward fought once in 2012. That was at 168 against Chad Dawson. He fought once about 14 months later against Edwin Rodriguez in 2013. That was his last fight at 168. So 2013 onward, Andre Ward was a light heavyweight. Golovkin was at 160. Ward was a light heavyweight. Ward did not fight in 2014. Finally gets a fight in 2015 against Paul Smith. And the only reason he got to fight is because his former promoter, Goosen, died, and the family released him from his contract, this, that, the other. I could go into that for an hour and that whole debacle. But Ward had been a chronically inactive fighter. He was sitting on his butt during most of his prime because of that contract dispute. And again, last fight at 168 was 2013. Did not fight in 2014. Fought once in 2015. It was the summer of 2015, right? Against Paul Smith, and that was at 175. Comes back in 2016, and for the remainder of his career, fights at 175. Google, guys, just go out there and Google. There are plenty of interviews where Andre Ward says, I can't make 168. I'm not going back down. That would be hard for me to make 168. So unless people are expecting Gennady Golovkin to move from 160 to 175 to fight Andre Ward, by the time that fight would have had any relevance at all, right? It couldn't have happened because Ward was not going to move down to 68. Golovkin didn't want to move up to 68 because he wanted to fight with Canelo at 60 because the fight with Canelo was way bigger, way more substantial than the fight against Andre Ward. One final note on this, okay? So I could just put this on the record because I am sick and tired of this narrative being spun. And people just do not have the facts and information. God damn it. Now I just fucked my head up because what was I going to say? I just forgot what I was going to say. I saw a couple super chats. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Let me get to these super chats. OJ with the super chat. Thank you so much, OJ. I appreciate that. He says, what if Triple G loses to Murata or even gets KO'd? Is the Canelo fight still going to happen? Great question. He adds, Triple G could get old overnight. That would take the interest out of the Canelo fights. I hope the trilogy is good. Outstanding question. I guess it's stipulated in the contract that for Canelo and Golovkin to fight for the third time, they both have to win their next fight. So it doesn't matter if they win by a point. It doesn't matter if they win by knockout. They have to win. Golovkin has to beat Murata. Canelo has to beat Bivol. If they don't, that second fight ain't happening. What's smart about that is DAZN's not on the hook. Both men have to do their part. And if they don't, then DAZN's not on the hook for that massive payday in September. So DAZN's finally starting to get a little smarter about these things. It's taken them a while. It has taken them a while. Deed with the super chat. Thank you so much, Deed. He says, do you think Josh Taylor will make it to 154? He has the frame to be a big welterweight already, and he might outgrow that weight class real fast. I don't know, dude. I don't know about 54. And here's why I say that. Josh Taylor's in his 30s. I want to make sure I get the right age. He's got to be 31. Yeah, he's 31. 31 years old. So look, if he was 25 and built this way, yes. But at 31, if he's still able to make 140, then that means I really, really feel he could be making 147 in his mid-30s. I think it's very, very possible he does do maybe a couple fights at 154 if he fights on past like 35 years of age or something. If he gets into his late 30s, sure. But I don't think he's going to need to be at 54 anytime soon. I mean, he just made 140. He looks gaunt. His face looks sunken in when he makes 140, but he makes it, right? So at 31, if he's making that weight, then that tells me at 32, 33, 34, he's going to make 47 okay. Now, again, if he fights on past that, yeah, maybe he goes to 54 and he'll be competitive, but he's going to really, really lack power and explosiveness in that division. It's going to be a struggle for him at welterweight, honestly. He's mean and he's got that dog in him and everything, but he doesn't have that one-punch KO power and explosiveness, and that might cost him at 47. It would cost him dearly at 154. But he does have skills, so he'll definitely compete. That is for sure. All right, man. I wanted to make one other point about this Ward and Golovkin thing, and I just freaking forgot, man. It just drives me nuts that people go with this narrative when there's just zero truth to it. But again, I do think it's worth noting that, another thing I saw on Twitter this week, people saying, well, Canelo moved up and he's fought the guys at 68 and Golovkin's never moved up. He's a chump because he stayed at 160 his whole career. And I answered this one kid, I'm like, well, then is Marvin Hagler a chump? Because Marvin Hagler fought at 160 for his whole career. He never moved up. There's a million fighters I can point to that stayed in one division for their entire career. And what's wrong with that? Canelo did move up and fight at 68, but did he fight anybody in the same stratosphere as Andre Ward? No. None of these guys, it's a 168 right now, are anywhere, or half as good as Andre Ward or Joe Calzaghe or even Carl Froch or Mikkel Kessler. They're not. None of them are. So yeah, Canelo did move up and fight them, but guys, look at who we fought and put it in perspective. Trying to compare, Golovkin moving from 60 to 75 to fight Ward, or maybe 172 or something, because Ward didn't want to go back down to 68. Comparing that to Canelo fighting Callum Smith and Avni Yildirim and stuff, guys, pump the brakes. Then that being said, I give Canelo tremendous credit, but much different career, and Canelo's younger, doing this at a younger age than Canelo, or I'm sorry, Golovkin would have been moving up. So I just, two different things, man. Two very, very different things. Earl Garcia says, brain fart. It happens. Yeah, man. Tell you guys, I mean, it's been a heavy, heavy week, and I'm just kind of worn out just from all the drama going on, talking to everybody about what's going on overseas. Because again, for those of you just getting on the chat, I mean, this hits home with my family, my mother's side of the family, and it hits home in the boxing community, and several people that I know from that part of the world in the boxing community that I talk to regularly, people that I used to train with back out in LA and stuff, been affected by this. Someone I used to train with had family members that were captured, I guess. I don't know what other word you could use. They were captured. Apparently they got away and they escaped. But I mean, there's some crazy shit going on right now, man, over there. So all right, let's take a few phone calls. All right, I think this is Thad here. Thad, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, Thad to the rescue. I think I fill in some blanks for you with the whole Golovkin and Ward.
Yeah, help me out, man. My brain just died here.
before that, no politics, but I got to say my prayers and my thoughts and actions are with the Klitschko brothers, Usyk, Postal, Lomachenko, all the Ukrainian people. I'm with you, believe me. I'm blood, and you're showing the world what true warriors are. So let's get back to boxing. This is cathartic today, and my favorite topic is Ward Golovkin, because over these years this has been a pain point. And I think what you're missing is when Golovkin, he was trying to get the Floyd fight at 154. He actually challenged Floyd at 54 for Floyd's 2 belts. Floyd had 2 belts at that weight, the WBC and WBA, after he beat Canelo and Cotto. So Floyd said, no, you got to fight Andre Ward first. You got to move to 175. That's where all that hubbub came from. You know what,
Thad? You just reminded me of what the hell I was thinking of. I was going to talk about we'll fight anybody between 54 and 68 thing that the haters bring up. So if you could allude to that, because they said that once. I think it was Abel Sanchez said it, and it was like in 2012 when Golovkin was trying to establish himself. So that's what I was trying to think of before. You just jolted my brain back to life. Thank you, sir.
It's all it took. And Carl Froch was the fight that they wanted at 68. And that's when Abel made that comment. Yeah. So, and then Ward, he hadn't fought in 14 and 15. So he used that clout upon his moving up to 75 to say, yeah, I'd fight Golovkin. He basically stole the guy's thunder because nobody really gave Ward a thought.
It was a promotional thing with HBO. And
100%.
Yes.
100%. And a couple reporters came and barnstormed Golovkin when he was promoting the fight for Lemieux. And at this point, Golovkin was learning English. It was his 6th language at the time. That's amazing. I mean, and they asked him the question about Andre Ward, and he struggled. And now I know because my girlfriend was Brazilian and I learned Portuguese, but I could only understand a few contexts. And I had a hard time responding in the language. I could respond in English, but Golovkin responded in English to a foreign language, and he was choppy. His words were lost in translation. He said, "Word, too much right now, too much for me." He basically was meaning, no, I'm fighting Lemieux. I don't want to talk about that. He was trying to communicate that, and all these mouth breathers took that as a literal context to say, oh, Golovkin said Ward was too much, and they had their little fun with it because basically they had no fighters that could beat Gennady Golovkin. So that was kind of their silver lining of sorts. And it was just funny because they all hated Andre Ward, these same people. And then all of a sudden they started embracing Andre Ward when he got with Jay-Z. And I find that quite entertaining. And maybe that could be a subject for another day with these talking heads. But like I said, I love this conversation because A, it was a fight that probably never would have happened because of the sheer weight difference.
Yes.
And B, the timeline. So for people to keep bringing it up, it's funny, but they have to know the facts. And you laid it out. You laid out the facts. And you're right. Ward ended up incriminating himself. Like basically, if Andre Ward was on the stand and he made statements in front of a grand jury, and he was now he didn't plead the fifth, and what he said basically in interviews later on that I couldn't make 168, 175 is difficult to make. I saw that interview.
Yeah, because he talked about doing a heavyweight fight. I remember that.
Right. Yeah, he said, I can't make 175 anymore. It's very difficult. So how the hell was he going to make 68 to fight Golovkin? He perjured himself, in other words. He had no intention of fighting Golovkin at 68. It was all propaganda.
Then why does he still bring it up, Thad? Why does he still bring it up?
Because Andre Ward is a narcissistic sociopath. I know those are strong words, but mentally, this guy, from his childhood growing up, I know he was from a multi-race family. His father was white, his mother was black. That was very difficult in Oakland. I think a lot of it stems from the fact he was not accepted by both people. And I think he's very jealous of Golovkin and a lot of these Eastern European fighters that are coming over America, getting the fanfare, getting the respect of the American fan base. And it's because of their boxing styles. It's because of how they carry themselves. It has nothing to do with race. And I think Ward is so tied up in that with Jay-Z and all the crap that he put into his head. Because Andre Ward was a different guy before Jay-Z got his mitts on him and paid him all that money to become his mouthpiece. And that's another story for another day. But with Ward's career, and I don't like Andre Ward as a person, and it sometimes blurs the lines on his fighting ability to me. But I will say this. Yeah, he fought a lot of guys, but he drained Chad Dawson from 75. He made him fight him at 68. And after that, Dawson was obliterated. He was not the same fighter. John Scully said in an interview he should not have been fighting at 68. He was so dehydrated. But Andre Ward didn't want to move up to 75 at that point. Okay? He played that strategy role. A lot of his fights were like that with Kovalev. In the rematch, they had a signed contract, but Ward said, no, I want it rewritten because I want to announce when the fight's going to be. And the reason why he did that was because he wanted to piss clean. He wanted to make sure that he could control the narrative and control when the fight is announced, because that's when VADA gets involved. And Kovalev's team, they said, well, we only had 60 days of VADA. We wanted 90. Now we had to settle for this because this guy delayed the rematch that long, if you remember. It was supposed to be the rematch in March, and it was postponed till June because of Ward and his antics. And that's why I have no respect for Ward, on top of the fact when he fought Mikkel Kessler in Oakland, and the referee, and I think it was Jack Reese, who's a great referee, I think he was headbutted deliberately on multiple occasions. And Al Bernstein said, boy, on the replay, Andre Ward came in like a billy goat on that one, literally lowered his head, deliberately headbutting Kessler, cutting his eyes, and Kessler was never the same after that fight. His eyes were damaged to the point where his vision was compromised, and Andre Ward got away with that. And that was the type of man and fighter he was. He was very dirty, and he was never held accountable. Those fights he should have been disqualified in versus Kessler and Kovalev in the both fights. So, yeah, I have a bone to pick with Andre Ward, and that's why. Has nothing to do with anything else. I just think the guy's a fraud. I really do. And what he did with Golovkin this week just shows the insecurity in a grown man. I mean, this guy's like 35, and he still holds that grudge. That, in essence, shows my contempt for Andre Ward and why I'm right about Andre Ward, just from what he did this week. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you responded to these mouth breathers on Twitter that are running their mouths without knowing the facts. And you know what? You could show them facts. They're just going to believe what they want to believe.
That's so true.
At least,
I showed the timeline. I talked about what happened. I did not interject any personal opinions. I just gave it, and they still don't care. One guy responded to me, and he said that Gennady Golovkin bankrupted HBO. And I'm like, what the hell? Where do you get that from? He was one of the most profitable fighters of HBO boxing in the last few years. You want to talk about somebody bankrupting someone? Andre Ward bankrupted Rock Nation Boxing. They lost their ass on those fights between him and Kovalev.
Jay-Z. He paid him $5 million and got his. I mean, he lost it all on him and Golovkin.
The only guy
versus,
they made money on was Cotto. They lost a ton of money. Remember they overpaid Rigondeaux?
Yeah, against the Canelo fight.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
they made a lot of money on that
Rock
fight.
Nation.
But man, Rock Nation, what a disaster they were. Oh my God.
And they wanted to offer. They almost offered Adrian Broner all that money, and he turned it down like an idiot.
Right.
But they almost got themselves. Yeah, they almost got themselves in another pickle.
Broner taking that money. Oh my God, he turned it down.
What a financial disaster. And let it be known that HBO's last pay-per-view fight was Golovkin versus Canelo 2, and it did over 1 million buys. And people want to say that he bankrupted HBO.
It was insane.
That's just fantasy. It's fantasy. But these people, whatever we say is not going to. It's not going to resonate in their minds. They have their mindset. They are narcissists, malignant narcissists, like it was pointed out by a lady friend of mine who's in this psychology business. That's what they are, and there's no cure for it. And unfortunately, these are what the people want to believe. But at least, Boxing Scribes can put it out there. It'd be a great article in Ring Magazine, just so it's on hard copy. But Ward, Ward he's a dreamer. This guy's in a fantasy world, and it has a lot to do with ego.
Yeah, but
maybe I feel sorry for him a little.
Yeah, those of us in the industry that talk, people talk behind the scenes. There's a lot of things I know about Andre Ward and his personal life and stuff that are directly against the Son of God thing that he does publicly, right? I got nothing against Ward as a human being, but he is not this holier than thou Christian, super duper nice guy and does everything by the book. Not at all. But there's just, he's always been insecure and had a very fragile ego. And what I don't understand is I think he's doing a great job as a commentator. I think he's transitioned into that role very well. I think he does a good job. I'm not saying he's great. He's not the best, but he does a good job. Better than other fighters who are doing it right now. Certainly better than Lennox Lewis and guys like that. And just be happy with what you're doing now, dude. And again, full disclosure, I voted for Ward in the Hall of Fame. I voted for him. I thought he was a Hall.
You did.
I know you hate that, but I thought, listen, guy was an Olympic gold medalist, and regardless of how he got there, he was the legit champ in 2 divisions. I put him in, and I wasn't the only one. I mean, he was going to get in with my vote or not, but
right, exactly.
He's a Hall of Famer now. He's a commentator. He's got millions of dollars. Why is he still so bitter and angry and bringing this shit up? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's that answer. He still holds a grudge. He knows deep down he wasn't the better man than Golovkin. And this is its only cathartic way to express those feelings. And it's a man that has a very weak mind. He's very strong in the ring. He wrestles, and that's his style. He was a dirty fighter. He had no power, but he definitely knew how to wrestle you, hold you, foul you, do what he had to do to win. That's why he fought in Oakland all the time. He would never have gotten away with that anywhere else. And I think that holds in his mind that he wasn't the better man, and he has to overcompensate. So, it just goes to show that Andre Ward, he has a job in commentating, and he does a good job. He's very articulate. He can think quickly, and that's something Lennox Lewis doesn't do. He stutters. He's a mumbler. He has good diction, but he's not articulate. He doesn't put it out there in an expressive way like a Paulie Malignaggi.
Yeah, he has no energy.
He doesn't get fiery.
It sounds like Lennox is asleep.
None.
Yeah,
it's monotone.
I remember
it's completely monotone.
I just remember when Lennox kept calling Kelly Pavlik Kelly Polvik. When he was fighting Jimmy Taylor, and Jim Lampley corrected him like 3 or 4 times during the fight, and he kept calling him Polvik. And he just mispronounced his names, and it's kind of fun,
Wow.
Oh, dude, go back and find that on YouTube. He calls him Polvik like 4 times.
I was at the fight in Atlantic City, the first one. That was a all-time classic. I didn't see the replay, I don't think. It must have been the rematch that Lennox was on, because I don't remember seeing him at that fight. I think it was someone else maybe calling him.
No, he was on the call in the first one too. because he goes, I think he
Okay.
got it right at one point because he said, Pavlik is a tough cookie from Youngstown. I remember that. But he kept calling him Polvik earlier on. It was hilarious.
My goodness.
Good shit.
Oh man, yeah, that was a story for another day. But it was really nice talking to you, Mike. Look forward to hearing what everyone else has to say. I know we won't get another chance like this, but yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
All right, brother. Have a good weekend, man.
You too.
Yeah, Kelly Polvik. I'll never forget that. Carlos says, no one better than George Foreman as a commentator. I love Big George. And he was great. He was great. And he was a guy that would put professionalism aside sometimes and just say it what needed to be said. And that's one thing I loved about George. What fight was it where he literally got up, walked away from the table, and was screaming at the ref, "Stop the fucking fight!" I don't. Maybe he didn't swear, but he was screaming, and you could hear him off the mic. You could hear you could just tell by the audio that he was several feet away from like Lampley and Merchant. But he was like, "Stop the fight! Stop the fight!" He was screaming. Like I thought, like Big George was too real. And I liked Roy Jones' commentary because his little Southern expressions, like "what a beard, son," with his little Roy has that little Southern accent going, and it's charming. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Roy's a cool guy too in person. Now there's a guy who's as huge as Roy Jones was. When you meet Roy in person, oh my God, is he humble and cool as shit. You'd never know he was once the baddest man on the planet when you meet him. Sam A with another super chat. Thank you, Sam. He says, Ward made $6 million in the second Kovalev fight, only 6,000 fans, and most of those were comps. I filmed Raheem interview him. Oh, you filmed an interview for Raheem after, and he had acne all over his back, never a big draw. Yeah, dude, listen, I'm not going to get in. Again, a lot of this stuff is off the record. Andre, I have nothing against him as a human being. He takes care of his kids and his wife. He's a very devout family man in that respect. But outside of that bubble, that dude would knife you in the street for a nickel. Just not the guy he represents himself to be sometimes. All right, back to the phones we go. Nacho, we know Nacho's got some opinions. What's up, Nacho?
Hey, Mike, what's up? Nothing much. Just really quick on the whole Ward thing. Not necessarily on him. Well, no, it is kind of about him. The other thing, too, is that I don't know if you've noticed, Mike, not only is he really quick to kind of pick on Golovkin and try to make it sound like Golovkin ducked him, he also has this habit of really going after Canelo supporters.
Yes.
When they bring up his name and like who he's fighting and like what he's doing in his career, it seems like he can't handle the fact that like people try to bring his name up with Canelo at the same time. So I agree with that. He just seems to have a really fragile ego or psyche,
Yes.
whatever you want to call it. But he's a very fragile dude when it comes to stuff like that. It's just really tough to believe because, like you said, Mike, the guy is a Hall of Famer. He's a gold medalist. He finished undefeated in his career, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't understand why he feels so insecure when other people's names are brought up. It's pretty head scratching to say the least. And then I just kind of wanted to talk really quick about the fight. Josh Taylor, I think he should beat Catterall. I like Catterall. He's a solid guy, but I just think Taylor's a couple of notches above him as far as skills and boxing ability. So I like Taylor to win that fight. I'm really curious to see the Robeisy Ramirez fight.
Oh yeah,
against Eric Donovan. I think that kid's getting better every fight I've seen him since he got with Ismail Salas as his trainer. I think he's gotten way better offensively. And I think his style has evolved from that typical Cuban amateur style to a more pro-friendly style. So I definitely want to see him and see how he looks. But I don't think that kid's that far away from being a contender to me at featherweight, Mike. I think a few more fights and he might be ready.
I agree.
To challenge for a title shot. And then with the other card, the Showtime card, those those fights are okay. I'm a little disappointed that Roger Gutierrez had to bow out because of COVID. I definitely would have liked to have seen him fight Chris Colbert because I thought that was a really intriguing matchup. I don't know too much about the guy he's fighting now, Garcia. I mean, he's undefeated, but to be honest, I haven't seen anybody on his ledger that makes me think that he's a legit threat, Colbert. So, you know, it is what it is. The fight that really kind of has me intrigued is the
co-main.
Gary Antoine Russell
Yeah.
Victor Postal fight.
That's a good fight, man.
That fight is, yeah, that's the fight that has me intrigued. But the only thing I'm worried about, Mike, is that Postal gave an interview where he's basically saying as soon as the fight is over, he's trying to get back to the Ukraine because his wife and kids are like underground trying to avoid the
I think Marcos Villegas
going on right now.
Was it Marcos the interview? Yeah, I saw that. He looked like he was about to cry in that damn interview, man. He can't be in good shape.
That's kind of so mentally, I don't know how into the fight he's going to be because of this whole situation. But I mean, I hope he you know goes out there and he puts on a fight because I definitely want to see Gary Antoine tested. I still haven't seen anybody test the kid, so I definitely would like to see if Postal can kind of make him answer some questions in regard to that. And then just the only other thing was with Okoli, Mike. He's fighting on Sunday. What do you think of him as far as like being a legit threat at cruiserweight? Because there's not a lot of guys in that division that I don't think he can beat. I mean, I think he's even better than Bradis at this point.
Yeah, Bradis is trying to get a fight with Jake Paul. Did you see his little rap, yo? He posted a rap, like a video on Twitter. Did you ever see that?
And then apparently he got a tattoo of him or some shit too.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, Jesus,
I don't know what's going on with him, man. He's lost his damn mind. But Lawrence Okoli is being brought up the right way. I actually think he's going to fight very well this weekend, Sunday, and impress us against Cieslek, I think is the way it's supposed to be pronounced. But here's the thing with Cieslek, and I talked about this Monday on TNC. He's lost once, and it was a distance fight against Makabu. And it was kind of like an 8 rounds to 4 kind of fight, okay? I actually think Okoli's going to beat him much more dominant and maybe even stop him late. But I think Okoli's the goods, dude. I think he's the goods.
Yeah, I think he's legit, and I'd like to see him eventually challenge Bradis and any of the other title holders in that division for sure, because I think he's probably the best guy right now since Usyk left the division, in my opinion. So I definitely would like to see him face the other title holders and just kind of prove that he is the legit guy in that division, you know?
Yeah.
And then just last thing, Mike, did you bring up the whole Casemiro story? Because I just got on a little while ago. So
no,
I'm curious if you
I hadn't even talked about that. But guys, Nacho sent me a story where apparently, and you could talk about more details about it, Nacho, but apparently Casemiro had a 17-year-old girl sleeping in his bedroom with him. And was this in the Philippines, Nacho?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It said in the article that the Philippine authorities are the ones that are charging him. Really, the only thing I could add, Mike, was like I told you the other day, they said that Casemiro flew out of the Philippines because he knew the charges were coming.
Yeah.
So he's in the U.S. right now avoiding that whole situation. So, I was just like, wow, I couldn't believe that that whole story ended up being true. But yeah, I was
famous
just wondering
as
if
he is. He's not Manny Pacquiao famous or anything, but he's got a name over there. Dude, find an 18-year-old girl. There's nothing wrong if you like younger women, okay? My wife's younger than me. It's nothing wrong with that. But 17, what are you doing with the 17-year-old in your bed, dumbass? But here's the thing, Nacho. We'll know if he's guilty or not, because if he doesn't go back to the Philippines, that pretty much says it all. If he stays over here, that says it all, right?
Yeah, if he sets up shop here and never goes back, then we'll know that it was legit for sure.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Mike, that was my call.
All right, man. Have a good weekend, brother.
All right. You too, man.
There he goes. All right, guys, we're going to take one more call here. We're going to go over to the UK. Let's see. We got 203 on the line. What is up? Hello. Hello out there in the UK. Hello, hello. You're getting a 10 count.
Oh, hello.
Hold up. I heard somebody. What's up?
Captain Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can hear me.
I
Okay,
can
good.
now.
This is John.
What's up, John?
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, long time listener, first time caller.
Oh, cool.
In fact, I started listening back when it was Rich Marotta's Neutral Corner. What happened? Is this the same show?
The Neutral Corner for Boxing Monthly?
What was Rich Marotta? Yeah, you know Rich Marotta.
Rich Maratta.
Yeah, no, you don't know that guy.
I'm not sure. Rich Maratta.
I was listening to his podcast years ago, and I thought it was Neutral Corner as well.
Oh, really? No. I don't know. Maybe he did do a. Let's see. Did Rich have a Neutral Corner? I actually talked to Rich, but so Rich Marotta. You're talking to, yeah, he had a Neutral Corner podcast too, huh? Interesting. I did not know that.
That's what it's called.
I don't know, but
I thought maybe
I trademarked mine, so no one can take it now. So,
all right, safe. All right. Well, yeah, I've just been. I'm from the UK, but I moved to New Zealand just before the world went to hell. So I'm calling from there Saturday morning here, or just after midday.
I just did a radio show out there. Do you know Steffi? I think it's Afternoons with Steffi. It's a sports radio show there in New Zealand. I just did earlier this week.
I don't. I'll make a note of that. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I didn't have. I was mostly listening, but I was, for once, I tried to watch it live. Usually just download a podcast. One thing I don't know if you ever brought up is my idea to fix boxing. As well as having weigh-in limits, having hydration limits too, because that's what's causing the damage.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think that on its own could fix other problems. For instance, I think if boxers could eat a bit more and be at their natural weights, they wouldn't have to rely on supplements so much. But you can measure, hydration by a few different ways. They're not that accurate, but you can have a decent range. So, I'm not a doctor, but I thought that has that ever been? Have you ever heard that being discussed?
I've actually
and a hydration limit.
Well, so I've had ideas for hydration limits and weight management programs that the WBC has explored this a little bit, and they have a rehydration clause in for their title fights. But I talked to Andy Foster, the head of the California Athletic Commission, about this before, because, in all my research looking at fighter deaths in the ring and things like that, what I have been told by numerous experts is that it's the weight cut often that leads to death in the ring more than anything else. It's the dehydration of the brain. You literally dehydrate your brain, and then you take, blunt force trauma to the head, less than 24 hours or about 24 hours later. And that's how these things happen a lot of times. So what I've suggested, and I've done this with numerous folks at different athletic commissions and sanctioning bodies, and they've always told me they're interested and they'll look into it. But so far, no one's taken me up on this. But I think there should be a year-round weight management program, and you should have to weigh in every month if you are rated in a particular division. Let's say in the top 10. Let's take middleweight, and you have to weigh within 15% of the middleweight division limit. So you could do the math on that. I think that'd be, 184 if you're a middleweight. So you got to be, and again, I'm just throwing this number out there. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But I think if we did something like that, and then we had rehydration limits after the fight, which the WBC already has, or I think the IBF has, the WBC has a weight management program that I think is 30, 14, and 7 days before the fight, something like, you have to weigh within a threshold. And then the IBF has a 10-pound rehydration limit for their title bouts. But that's it. And I think that these things need to be year round. And I think that if we got to a place where ranked boxers were weighing in every month and they had to report their weigh in, and be within that threshold, we wouldn't see guys killing themselves to make weight. I think because same day weigh-ins never going to happen again. That era is over, and we're going to always have prior day weigh-ins because that's become part of the business now. But yeah, I think. Listen, I've brought it up. So far, no one's taken me up on it, but I'll keep fighting a good fight on that.
Good. Because it seems that this delayed, the weigh-ins before the fights, the test weigh-in. I heard there's a podcast with George Groves and talking about how boxers cut weight to get those. So they're in there, they're hard sparring, but they're cutting weight just to make the test weigh-in, which adds even more danger, taking more damage.
Yeah,
dehydrated brain even before the fight begins.
I've heard that too. Yeah. So with the WBC example, again, don't quote me, but I believe it's 30 days, 14 days, and 7 days. A lot of guys will be a couple pounds off for their 30-day and they'll go hit the sauna for a few minutes. They'll do that after a day of sparring. Yeah, that's not healthy. So if you made these programs year round instead of just a month or, a couple weeks before a fight, I think they'd be more effective because guys would have to stay in shape year round and they'd have to fight at a more natural weight. A lot of these guys are taking performance enhancing drugs to cut weight. They're taking diuretics and things like that. You can't take that stuff year round. You have to cycle on and off of it. So if you have this program year round, it would help eliminate a lot of those issues, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, like I said, that was just been on my mind recently. I didn't have anything else to say, just mostly this thing. But yeah, good to call in finally. I'll keep down on the podcast and keep up with good work.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoy the rest of your weekend out there.
Thank you.
All right. I said that was our last call, but I lied because I see CJ Duncan is on the line and he's always got good shit. So we're going to bring CJ on. He's going to crush it. And then we're going to get our weekend started. How about that, guys? All right. Let's see. CJ, what's up, brother? You're on the show.
Montero, good Friday to you and the good folks. I was surprised that you were still going, this long on the show. I was just finishing up with work, so I have not listened to any of the content, but I just felt like I had to at least try to call in because I saw that back and forth that was going on about the Triple G and Dre Ward, and I'm assuming that you got to some of that somewhere along in the playback.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had to tear that shit up, man, because that shit, it's so annoying to anybody who was on the beat at that time and knows what was going on, or any educated fan that understands timelines and details. Like, it's such bullshit, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I come across on it like this, man, is that if you are a fan of either one of the fighters, okay, cool. To the fanagers and the fanboys that just kind of just override on one side or the other. I love the sport, and have some kind of connection to the sport now, standard 34, 35 years. But, I'd say for like the last 20 or so, what they eat don't make me shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I can use that term because you get to control the content. So these folks are just like overriding, about certain positions on it. And I don't even want to give old buddy no shine even on your show, but the one that, consistently is trying to clickbait people when it's pushing the lines of race. One thing that I can say about this platform, not only because of being, an avid listener, but, at a point in time in a different life, you was even willing to come and chop it up with me on my pod. And then just even in the things that we have back and forth is you let the bullets fly from at every angle. Don't matter. If it ain't right, it ain't right. And you'll end up doing that. And you also give credit where credit is due when a fighter or a position is, makes sense. These guys that are truly making money off of just angling like that, I know that there's a sucker born every 10 seconds, like the old PT Barnum line, but it just seems like some folks just keep falling for the same trick over and over. I'll give an example about it with old buddy in particular. Back in September, when Valdez fought Concepcion, where I spend my own dollar, which a lot of those guys that are, be on social media tweeting about, riding off for every fighter each position and each color and creed, but they don't put their own dollar up. But I went out to Tucson and saw that fight. And while I was in the line in the bathroom, Latino brother comes up to me and, he just asked me my opinion on, certain fights and everything. And then he was like, do you follow a buddy? I was like, no, I don't. He's like, man, it just seems like everything that comes out from him is just about race, man. He's like, he's always race based. He's like, the thing is, like, I like Fighter X, Fighter Y, Fighter Z, and just started giving me a rundown like this. And I didn't ask him for the credit to give a rundown, what brought him into boxing. But for just a random guy in a conversation 90 seconds in to basically say the same thing that we're essentially seeing on this thread that you got here now, you hope that fight fans are smarter than that. And more importantly, just people in general should be smarter than that. Again, you can have your position about what you think one fighter did do or one fighter didn't do. That's why when I sent you that super chat last week about what term is used more often in boxing, at the end of the day, or he ducking. Last week it was just the end of the day. Now it's he ducking.
You just go back and forth.
And I ain't saying y'all because, like the folks that are listening to this pod, they obviously got enough of a left and a right brain. But in general, the boxing fan, in some ways, cuts its own nose off fighter's face with this kind of position and angling. And it's one of those moments where it kind of saddens you because you can even probably bet if you let this simmer long enough, we've got those stories going on with the Ukraine, based, born and bred fighters, like with the Klitschko's, and with Usyk, that decided that their money wasn't worth more than the value of their countries, and they went to go defend on the front line. I can bet you dollars for donuts somewhere along the line, somebody's going to use a baiting kind of comment to say something that will try to charge it up for more than what it is. And that's just unfortunate that we're in these times right here, because it's just a way for them to get a couple more clicks. And if they can feel comfortable going to sleep at night, being that pariah-like to earn a living, bless your heart. Like my big mom would say, bless your heart, man. It's sad, dude. And, we've got a lot of things we got to try to work ourselves through, not only as boxing fans, but people. But some of this stuff right here, man, when it's already been, documented that both sides were in the wrong of not getting that, we're going back to the G and the war fight, in the wrong of not getting the fight across the finish line. But if anything, ask certain people for their receipts to see if they actually pull them. No, because all they got to do is say that they got receipts, and they know that somebody else is going to take that story and run that gauntlet for them, and not have to actually have them cover up. And career for career, again, if you're splitting hairs, some people might say most of the prime of somebody's career was lost because they kept fighting in lawsuits that they know they weren't going to win, and tried to kick a dying man while he was down along the way. And that's taking nothing away from a Hall of Fame career.
Completely agree.
Again, there's nuance too. I think it's one of your favorite words is nuance to this fight game. Because some folks just don't end up seeing it that way, and it's unfortunate that we toe those lines. And most importantly, these guys are willing to call people out of every name possible when, again, I don't think that they are getting a half of a penny cut in half for having that opinion or riding that hard for that particular person. I hope that they ride just that hard for their family and their loved ones as they do for somebody that they walk by them, probably wouldn't stop giving them an autograph because they think they can make money off of it.
Yeah. It's a great point, man. It's a great point. Twitter is not real life. Just a reminder for everybody.
No, but a lot of people end up living that way because they don't ever get outside. The PBC's got a fight card that's coming out here on Saturday. Currently, the price point is way different. They'll probably end up having way more of an attendance, but also just because of the dollars of the fighters that are involved. But if anybody's in the greater Vegas area, you can probably pick up a ticket for less than $30 to go to the Cosmo on Saturday to be able to check that fight out. And if you wait even longer than that, just walk around in the Cosmo, you might get in there free because they're going to want to at least paper it out a little bit to make the arena seem somewhat full. That same arena that was less than 7 years ago, that Lomachenko sold out the place against Nicholas Walker, where it was a tough ticket to get. That was almost a couple $100 to be able to get. But some people will say that he's all hype, and that fighters that don't fight underneath that banner are all hype too. I don't know if I've got time to kill, that'll be one that I'd go check out. And I like when they put those events on over at the Cosmo. It's that kind of arena sitting. It's kind of cool, and it's a limited seat. Feels more like theater versus an arena. To watch a large scale fight, and it's more within my Peasley price range to be able to go make work. And at least I know that it's not going into a pay per view model for fighters that probably should be on pay per view at that time. But I ain't gonna hold you out here too much longer, man, because it seemed like you already had a long running show as normal. Appreciate what you do. Continue the great work. To all the folks that are on the core that are listening, much respect. Y'all be safe. Look out for your loved ones, and have some compassion while you be out in those streets. And like I said, Twitter ain't real. Go outside.
Yes.
Try to say that same nonsense to somebody outside and see if you still get your lip not being busted. Until we catch up again, Montero. You be cool out there, man.
You too, brother. We'll talk soon, man.
All right, now. Later.
Bye. Yeah, CJ's right. Go outside. CJ has a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful wife. We like to get on Twitter and talk boxing, talk shit, but we also go out and do things in the real world. And when you do that and you have a real life, it puts things in perspective. So I don't know if this is real, but I wanted to share this tweet here. Per Michael Benson, he says that Canelo Alvarez versus Dimitri Bivol will be shown live on DAZN pay-per-view in the U.S., priced at $60 for current subscribers and $80 for non-subscribers. Or he puts new subscribers, so I don't know if that includes a subscription or not. But to me, I don't know, man, $60 for that fight, it's kind of steep. I don't know. If they have a strong co-feature, I'll consider it. But if not, I don't know, man. I don't like that price. I just don't. Papa Chubby Chad says, super chat. Thank you, Chad. I will end on this. He says, Mike Arum was on the 3 knockdown rule and said that Taylor versus Crawford is no problem for Top Rank to make. Is this Crawford's best option aside from Spence and PBC? Well, Arum says all kinds of things, and he's, so we can't put too much stock into what Arum says because he is a promoter. But I do think in reality, yes, Crawford's, his star power isn't that big. Taylor's star power isn't that big. I do think both of these guys, it'd be a pretty easy fight to make because there'd be international money involved that would make it worth Grandpa Bob's while, and he could meet Crawford's purse demands. So, yeah, I think it is a great option. And personally, guys, I got to see how Spence looks against Ugas to know. I mean, maybe Ugas wins that fight. I favor Spence, obviously, but I don't know. Right now, Taylor's at the top of his game, and so is Crawford. Crawford might be the best fighter in the world. So I'd love to see the undisputed champion at 140 and the best welterweight fight each other. That'd be awesome. And Crawford also was once the undisputed 140. So that's a fantastic fight. And both Taylor and Crawford probably got the meanest mean streaks in all of boxing right now. They have the same fighter personality. So, yeah, sign me up for some of that shit. Now, that's a pay-per-view I'd pay for. All right, guys, have a wonderful weekend. As my man CJ said, get outside. Be with your loved ones. All right, get off the damn Twitter. The news is too negative right now. Get outside and do something this weekend, all right? Until Monday, TNC, you guys have a great weekend. See you at the fights. Peace.